Well, it must be Saturday because I have a Saturday night special for you. The Raven Arms MP-25. Check this out with me. But before we get started, don't forget to check out our friends over there at Workaday Custom Gun Leather. Custom made to order. Go ahead and check them out. Well, a viewer brought this one to me and never thought I'd be trying this thing out. The MP-25 from Raven Arms, made here in the US, California at some point. It's a zinc alloy 25 auto pistol with 5 rounds in the magazine, and we'll talk about that nightmare in itself. But this is a firearm that is commonly referred to as a Saturday night special, and we're going to see if it lives up to that name. So why is it called a Saturday night special? It's an old joke that actually goes back to being the like a joke. You get the Saturday night special at the corner and go to the liquor store or something like that. That's this ridiculous little piece of crap. Super cheaply made, almost no handy features to this thing whatsoever, other than the fact that it's ultra concealable. Utility wise, if you're on a major budget, this might be your only option, I guess, but there's better options, believe me. It is chambered in 25 auto, commonly known as a little bit of a undercharged cartridge, and we'll hold up a comparison later on. There's not much to say about this thing. It's a semi-automatic pocket pistol, and it has, reliably anyway, 5 rounds in the magazine, plus 1 in the chamber if you wanted to carry it like that. Would this be a concealed carry option if you had no other choice, which there are plenty of other choices out there, but it's better than a sharp stick, I suppose. So we'll look at some of the possible applications of this thing. This thing's about as simple as it gets. All you got to do is pull out the magazine, which is not a simple push button like you'll have on most pistols. You got to pull this little tab back, grab the little, there's a lip there you can see. Get that, pull it out, load your 5 rounds, set that to the side, cock the piece, and it's ready to go. Now obviously it's not loaded. You'll see in fact that it is a striker fire, so you're going to have the same trigger pull each time, and that's about it really. The safety is very rudimentary. It's just a trigger block right there, so it's on safe. Trigger don't move. Take it off, safe. You can pull the trigger, and of course you can see right there sent the firing pin forward. And then very simply it would cycle back, reset the firing pin, and you're ready for the next round. And as for the sights right there, they're just fixed in sights. You can see their groove in the rear and the front. Well, I can hear you now. What the heck is a 25 auto? Well, it's this little thing right here. Now, if you'll do a comparison, it's not much more than a 22 long rifle now, is it? And if we stand it up next to another intermediate cartridge, the 9mm, it's about half the size, isn't it? So why would you go with a 25 auto? It doesn't look like it's got much to it, really. And on top of it, the projectile itself is only 50 grains, so there's not much there. I can't imagine that this thing has much in the way of velocity. I don't have a chronograph. I don't really care. But we're going to see how it produced on the range anyway. But why would you do this when you got so much other stuff available to you? Well, 25 Auto's actually been around for a little while, and these small light charge cartridges were actually fairly popular back in the day, and the name of the game was small. So you wanted to have a small pocket pistol, something that you could easily conceal. Women especially, this would be great for women to conceal because it's so small, and you could just quickly produce it if a threat were to present itself, and then there you go, you have a means of defense. It's not so much the power aspect of it that I guess would be important, it's the fact that it's available to you. It's a very, very cheap option. This pistol actually came around at the high dollar cost of $15, so yeah. But anyway, it's better than a sharp stick if you're in a predicament, if pretty much you have nothing else, if your state, province, territory, whatever disallows you from having anything better, or if you're on that much of a budget that you can't afford anything better. Well, something's better than nothing, right? So yeah, we'll put it through its paces real quick. So the biggest plus about this thing is concealability. So check this out. No imprint whatsoever, but there she is right in the pocket. You'd never even know it was there because it's just so darn small. So that's a huge plus for this pistol. Your phone's going to imprint more than that, so that's a good advantage for this little guy. So let's find out if this thing's even worth our while. We're going to do 3 volleys. So starting at the 5-yard range, moving up to the 10, and then depending on how we're doing at that point, we'll even attempt 15. So without further ado, let's see how it does. Okay, got a jam because of slide bite. Okay, it's got to kind of choke down, I guess. Now you might have noticed when it shot up that 5th round, it did not go to slide lock. So I guess when you're in the realm of remaining cheap, that's a luxury you can't afford. So on the last shot, it will not go to slide lock. Let's look at this thing. And there you have it at 5 yards. The slide actually got caught on my skin. So, but there's your first 3, I believe. Oh, how lovely. It went sideways. And then the last 2. All right, 10 yards. Okay, I noticed that you don't want to have it dry fired, meaning the firing pin forward, before you load this thing. It has to actually be in the cock position. Otherwise, you're gonna get a negative load. So that's one little thing about this I noticed. So it's not universal loading. Well, at 10 yards, to be honest, kind of pleasantly surprised. Semi-fair group. I can't tell if that just blew through a pace. Well, now the paces were over here, so it must be a keyhole. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay, at 10 yards. Well, I gotta say, kind of pleasantly surprised. 10 yards. That's a pretty fair group. Now I think that's only what, a 2.5-inch barrel on there, so okay, 10 yards. I'll give the devil its due. As much as I've been cramping on this thing already. All right, I just got to make sure that I stay in tune with the method I got to hold the grip. Otherwise, it'll keep grabbing my thumb and throwing the rounds off. But as long as I can keep in tune with that, I believe we'll be okay at 15 yards. All right, let's give it a rip. 15 yards, let's see what she can do. Gotta hold it weird, kind of like this. Now I'm holding a little bit high because obviously there's noticeable drop and it's drifting to the left, so I'm gonna bring it a little bit to the right. So top right outer circle of the central target. Well, that don't look good. And at 15 yards, attempting to compensate. Aiming point was here. Rounds going there, 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 everywhere. Okay. So obviously 15 yards is outside of this thing's range. It was sending shotgun patterns like you wouldn't believe down there. Well, maybe you would believe it, you just saw it. So I would say practical range is 10 yards. Now take note of this. And right there is obviously the end of the barrel, and then right here is going to be the end of the barrel. So what you're looking at is probably 2.5 inches of 50 grain underpowered 25 ACP. Again, I don't know what the velocity is on it, but I'm sure it's not very impressive considering I can see the projectiles in the air as I'm shooting it. So up close and personal at 5 to 10 yards, you know what, this thing might actually work out if you had no other means anyway. So with the last 3 volleys, I did aimed slow fire. And if you're in a no crap situation, you know it's not going to go like that. It's going to be like pop, 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 pop. So let's see if this thing is able to sustain rapid fire. So not necessarily looking for accuracy here. I'm looking to see if it jams or not. Perfect function. Well, begrudgingly, I can not totally dismiss this thing as an absolute waste piece of crap. Would it be my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh choice? Nope. But, like I said earlier, it's better than a pointy stick or nothing. So, rapid fire, we had full function, no problems. Actually, it got a fair bit of accuracy down there too. It held on in a group that was approximately that big. For a rapid fire that was not necessarily aimed, okay, that's acceptable. But for a short-barreled little thing like this, I don't expect much out of range, okay? So 10 yards, with the accuracy that we got out of that, is perfectly acceptable, actually. So it's got its weird little things, okay? So you're not going to be able to get this thing to load unless it's already in the cock position, meaning the firing pin's already back. It won't do it. And when you hear me load it up, you can kind of hear it moving and stuff. You can definitely feel it. The magazine release sucks. There's no rapid change out there, not going to happen. The safety sucks, okay? It is firm, it's firm and it's not going to move or anything like that. It's a good safety as far as that goes. But as far as getting that thing easily put in a position, no, it sucks. Sights are not horrendous, I suppose, but let's see how it does in power. So earlier I did a comparison between the 25 auto and the 9mm, and that's not really much of a comparison at all. Probably would have been more accurate if I did a 380 ACP. Unfortunately, I didn't have any handy, but I did have 9s. And since we're talking Saturday night specials, yeah, I brought out the Behrman again. So the barrels are actually pretty close, aren't they? So this being the 9mm, this is the 25 ACP, relatively same manufacturing quality. So it's somewhat comparable, I guess, for our purposes anyway. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to see how the swingers react to each round. Kind of a power of impact indicator just by looking at how the swingers move. And then I'm going to set out 2 coffee cans full of water, and we're going to see what happens there. So this should be pretty good. So because I'm going to be shooting steel, I'm not going any closer than 10 yards, and that's just for safety purposes. But with that, I got to keep in mind how these things like to drift. So obviously we saw the 25 auto like to drift over to the left. Check. And if we might remember that the Behrman goes a lot high, check. So we just have to keep that in mind and see if we can get the dingers to swing in 2 shots. So first things first, on the right hand side, let's do that 25 auto. Alright then. So now let's try out that Behrman. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. I just got hit by a bullet. I can't believe that just happened. I just got hit right in the crotch by the bullet bouncing back at me. Make sure you wear your PPE, guys. Holy crap. I couldn't hit the thing with the Behrman, so I'm just going to use the 92 FS. Good enough. And of course that's the power you get back from it. You can notice the difference in the splash marks. Alright, in the 10 yards I have the 2 coffee cans filled with water. So on the right hand side is going to be the 25 auto. On the left I'm going to shoot with the 9mm. Good splash action there. Alright, and now the 9mm. Let's see what kind of difference we have. So both of them got their blocks knocked off. This is the 9mm, it stayed in place. 2 entrance, and there's your exit. So that's a straight through and through. And that's a nice blowout the back. That's probably the first shot. And here's from the 25, so there's the first shot. It just knocked it right over. But as you can see on the back, not much in the way of blowout. So I don't know if you can see anything from the splash out. That will kind of give a little bit of credence to what happened. So that's how the Raven arm shoots. Surprisingly acceptable. That's a good way of putting it. Actually, the groups were not nearly as bad as I expected. Power level was right about where I expected. The Behrman Derringer is equally a piece that it is. And anyway, let's move on. So if this is something that you end up with, you got to know the maintenance of it. And it doesn't typically come apart the same way that most pistols do. And you'll see that most pistols will have a takedown lever. So for example, like the 92 FS here, it's got the takedown lever right here. So you just press it from this other side here, takedown lever, release the slide, and then you can obviously field strip from there. However, the Raven Arms does not have that. So what you got to do is, like I mentioned before, back here in the striker hole, you got to push in with a punch, and you got to watch out. This thing likes to jump out too. And then you'll see how it kind of offset the slide a little bit. I got to keep an eye on it because that thing likes to push out because it's spring driven. So right there, pull it out, and you got to watch out. There's your reset spring, and the entire slide will come off. It's still got a fixed barrel on there. There's your recoil spring. There's your chamber. Obviously there's your striker system and firing pin in there. A lot like a Bursa, right? If you haven't seen that video, go check that out. But it's very similar as far as that goes. And if you want to put it back together, you just take that fire pin plate, put it back in there. Now you got to punch it in, then resettle everything onto the receiver, like so. Maintain on there, then you can reset it, like so. Now you'll notice it's not going to actually cock until you put it on fire. So you look where the firing pin is, and now it's cocked. So that's another bizarre quality about this pistol, that if it's on safe you can't cock it. Maybe that's a safety mechanism, maybe that's just poor production, I don't know. But there's a along with the shooting portion, a little bit of power and a super basic field stripping tutorial right there, I guess. So that's about it. So what are my final thoughts on this thing? If you have no other option, it'll work. It's not going to jam on every single one. It actually does hit somewhat where you point it. If you're using it for defensive purposes at longer ranges, obviously it's not going to be very effective, but most self-defense situations happen within 7 yards, so they say. So this would actually work pretty good. Is it going to have the same kind of knockdown power of a 45 ACP? Of course not. No, it's not. But it's enough to use as sort of like an octopus ink spray. Get the bad guy off of you, right? So you can escape until you reach safety. So if this is your best option, you know, it'll work. You could do better, you know, I mean, but it's cheap, it operates, You can feed it, I guess, reliably, semi-reliably, and it'll work. I'd say probably one of the biggest problems is finding the actual ammunition for it. Even before we had the ammo crisis here in 2021, 25 ACP was fairly difficult to find. 25 auto, 25 ACP, however you want to say it. It's fairly difficult to come by, so, and it can be somewhat pricey. So if you're stuck with this pistol and you got to feed it, well, you got to find the ammo to feed it too. So there's another issue. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Got a little bit of insight into this cheap Saturday night special. It actually does work, and it can be used. If you want to see any more of those, well, you pretty much see my two biggest crappers in one video, the Behrman and that Raven Arms. So yeah, anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time.